We can put that in a little bit of perspective here. In the 22-year war on terrorism, we lost about 7,000, 7,500 active duty military, which is tragic, but still, I mean, as I told you, my grandfather was involved in D-Day. We lost far, far more than that in that battle. But in that same 22-year period, we've lost over 144,000 veterans to suicide.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. Matt Maples, I'm so pleased to get to interview you and talk about your long career in servant leadership. Because when I look at everything you've done, the care that you've put into whether it's nonprofits like USA Cares or into the church and ministry or into any of your other roles, that is what I see. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Anika. It is my pleasure and honor to be with you today.
So I would love to hear a little bit about your background, your backstory before we get into what you do today and how you're helping veterans.
Oh, I would be delighted to tell you. So, I have lived most of my career, I worked in pastoral ministry. I grew up in the Texas Panhandle. So I grew up in a city called Amarillo, Texas. We have a famous song about us by George Strait and a steakhouse that everybody wants to go to. But but I grew up there, went to high school there, went to college there. And while in college, I started getting connected to my faith and I started getting connected to opportunities to serve my community and people around me. So while there, I decided, well, I wanted to go to graduate school. And I got connected to a school in the Chicago area called Wheaton College. And there I started learning a lot more about ministry and my faith and how my faith can make a difference in the world and what kind of difference it can make. So afterwards, I ended up serving the church in amazing places like Omaha, Nebraska for 6 years, and then back in the Texas Panhandle for oh gosh, a number of years, about 14 years, helping like different types of churches around the area, as well as teaching leadership and programs and stuff at West Texas A&M University. So a lot of different opportunities with a driving kind of common denominator of trying to find ways to help people and to help them grow into more of what God created them to be, help them to be the very best.
Yeah. And was this modeled growing up, just the idea of giving back? Because I know in my family, my mom was a social worker and she helped a lot of immigrant families when they were coming over from Southeast Asia because we're Thai and Lao and she spoke a lot of dialects. She would take me with her. And so I got to see it in action when I would play with the kids while she would talk to the parents and try to just help them learn how we did things. And this is in Lawrence, Kansas. So I'm very familiar with Nebraska. I lived in Texas for a few years as well. So, I saw her model it. I saw other people in my family model this behavior of servant leadership and what it means to give back and to help other people in society. So was that what you saw at home?
I think a person who was a very significant influence on my life growing up was my grandfather. And my grandfather, for a long period of time when I was young, my mom and I lived next door to my grandparents, and my sister was with us as well. And I would go over to my grandparents' house every morning. And every morning, my grandmother would make cinnamon toast. And it was the most, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that good, but in my memory, it's the greatest thing that was ever made, like anywhere in the world. And I would go over every morning and I would enjoy some cinnamon toast. And I would talk with my grandfather. And
Mm,
my grandfather helped me to understand some of the key things about being really successful in life. Ideas like service, sacrifice, and what it means to put, your family, your community, and your country above your own needs. See, my grandfather, he would talk to me about his service. and he served in the United States Army during World War II. So he landed at Omaha Beach in Normandy, France. And he was at the latter end, but he was part of the whole D-Day mission and so forth. And he came in and he served in France and Germany and earned a Bronze Star. And then later on went and served in the army in Korea. So he just it was just like the idea of service and the idea of sacrifice was just kind of oozing out of him. But he would tell me a little bit, he would share with me a little bit about some of the things that had happened to him and the experiences he had and the thoughts he had and so during his time in the army. I think that really started to lay a groundwork in my life towards wanting to serve.
Yeah. It's beautiful that you say that because it makes me think about my grandparents. And my grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force, the Army Air Force back then.
Yes.
He built Air Force bases all over. And that was a time when every man pretty much enlisted, right? So after him, my dad was in the Army in Europe. One of my uncles was in the Army. Two of my uncles went to West Point and they were both in Vietnam. But the experiences that people take back or bring back from service can be very different. With my grandparents, they had a wonderful retirement. We lived near them. When my mom and my dad got divorced, my granddad would come over and every morning so that she could go to work and make sure we had breakfast before we walked over to school. We were very close. And so I feel a kinship with you about that. And they also got a lot, like I know from my dad's perspective, of a worldview of what it's like to live in different places, how to respect other cultures, but also how to bring that back home. And so I love hearing that he had such a profound effect on you and really helped mold who you wanted to be and what you saw as success. Because a lot of times we think about success in monetary terms, but we don't think about it necessarily in terms of this makes me feel good every day when I get up. Do I feel happy? Am I doing something that I can be proud of that my family can also be proud of?
Absolutely. And I also think, I think as you could probably attain from my background and so forth, I think that we're all created for a purpose on purpose. So I think that we and our lives are much, much better when we will connect to that purpose. And ultimately, our purpose, it's not about getting things for ourselves. It's about giving ourselves to others and helping other people around us ultimately. And I think when we do that, we end up connecting with the purpose that we were each created for.
Yeah. Yeah. And that takes us really perfectly to what you're doing now. You're an educator, you've helped coach in leadership development, you've worked within different ministries, and now you are the Texas director for USA Cares.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you a little bit about USA Cares. So, USA Cares is a wonderful organization that helps to keep military families from falling off like the figurative cliff, so to speak. So here's kind of what we have seen. We were founded by some Army veterans, Anika, in 2003. And they were seeing some of the first waves of veterans coming back from Afghanistan. And they were seeing that there was just something that was not quite right. The veterans were not responding or recovering in the way that they expected. And ultimately, the data has proven that out. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But what we found is that the veterans were struggling just mightily with their service in Afghanistan. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to provide an organization that helps them keep their families together in their homes and in their jobs. Because our ultimate goal is to try and steer down or to reduce the number of veterans who are each day taking their own lives. Here's the tragedy that the veterans have seen since 2001. Each year since 2001, we have had more than 6,000 veterans take their own lives. We can put that in a little bit of perspective here. In the 22-year war on terrorism, we lost about 7,000, 7,500 active duty military, which is tragic, but still, I mean, as I told you, my grandfather was involved in D-Day. We lost far, far more than that in that battle. But in that same 22-year period, we've lost over 144,000 veterans to suicide. I just let that sink
That's,
in for a second. Yeah, it is tragic, and I think it's wrong. I think that you and I, as members of this society, as citizens of this country, we can work together to help reduce that number. We can work together to help these veteran families. And the way that we have chosen to do that with USA Cares is we provide emergency grants that are designed to help keep veterans from being evicted or foreclosed on, so removed from their home or their utilities turned off, or and repair their car when it breaks down. Because here's our goal. Our goal is to keep the veteran with their family in their home and in their job. What we're trying to do is we're trying to give them the opportunity to take a breath and to kind of figure out, okay, what is my next step?
yeah. Because to your point, people love to hire veterans
Yes.
because they're disciplined, they work well with teams. I can go on and on and on. But if you don't have a safe place to live, if you don't have a way to get to work, that can add on to the mental anguish that you're feeling after possibly coming back with PTSD or other diagnoses from the things that you've seen in these times of war.
Absolutely. And then, like what we find is we find that a lot of the reasons why these veterans get themselves in trouble in this way is they generally are stemmed from consequences of their military service. So, like you just alluded to, what I find is a veteran who returns from combat, and they will typically have a kind of a combination of challenges. So let's take, for instance, they're likely going to have some physical challenges. So any veteran, whenever I have conversations with veterans and stuff, it's always kind of fun to kind of talk with them and figure out, okay, which one of these areas do you struggle with physically? Do you have bad knees? You have back injury? Or, and this is one I wouldn't have guessed before working with USA Cares, hearing problems. And the thing is, and you can ask your family members that too. And thank you and your family so much for your service. What tends to happen is because of the nature of service, because of the physical requirements of doing the job in the military, it is not uncommon at all for them to injure their back and or their knees. Then, because of the types of equipment that they're using, or if it's just because, like, I've got a friend who is an Army veteran and he said he is deaf, he is basically deaf on his left ear. And I was like, why? And he's like, because that's the side my rifle was on. See, because they don't get to use hearing protection because they need to be able to hear if someone's shooting back at them. I mean, it's real simple, but there's consequences to that. And those kinds of injuries don't just, those tend to kind of linger. They hurt every day a little bit, or they frustrate you a little bit. Then you have things like PTSD. When you go over and you do things that are so difficult to do, when you are stepping in and you are taking fire, you're having to live in a situation where you just don't get to turn off the alarm in your head. All of that kind of creates a kind of a toxic stew, is the way I like to put it. That tends to take some veterans and really make it very, very difficult for them as they try and reacclimate themselves into our society here.
Yeah. What is it? Because there are a lot of ways that you could help veterans, right?
Absolutely.
And obviously, counseling, therapy, mental health services are also really important. What is it about making sure people are housed and have transportation that helps them deal with all of the other issues that might be going on? Like, why is that what USA Cares decided to focus on?
That is an excellent question because what we believe, and we think the data supports us a lot in this, is we believe that if we can, what we think we can do is we can kind of put a pause on the crisis. So basically, they start to feel like the walls are caving in on them. I'm about to be evicted. I don't know what to do. I'm going nuts here. and then I get evicted, and the chances of me getting separated from my family statistically starts to shoot up. Then the chances of me becoming homeless statistically starts to shoot up. And then the chances of drug use starts to go up, and the chances of suicide starts to go up exponentially. So what we believe is that if we can intersect at that point and prevent them from being evicted and prevent that first like consequence, that first tragedy from happening, then what we're able to do is help them to kind of take a breath and then figure out, okay, what is it we need to do? What is it we want to help you with? What else do you need? Do you need help with navigating some of the world of the VA? Okay, let's figure out how to do that. Do you need help with another organization? Okay. Like for us, I live in the Austin, Texas area, and we have an organization that does horse therapy nearby. Is that something that could be very helpful to you? It is to a lot of veterans. It's very helpful. But those things and counseling and so forth, like you said, all of these things are crucial components towards helping the veteran become whole again. But the challenge is that those things don't really work if I don't have a home. If my baseline foundation isn't stable, then the rest of it just doesn't matter as much, or it's not as effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I appreciate that perspective and giving us kind of if this doesn't happen, if they're not able to stay in their homes or have safe transportation, all of these things, it just becomes a domino effect and not a positive one, right? There are no winners here if those things happen.
No. And it's amazing to see what can happen. If you don't mind, I would love to share you a story from a veteran. Her name is Leah. It's been nearly 2 decades since Leah left the Army, but the wounds from her time in the service still trouble her, even today. She says, I suffer from PTSD from Iraq. I had some things go on over there that kind of led to that. And her condition is severe enough that Leah cannot work. Her husband, a fellow Army veteran, is designated as her caregiver through the VA's Program of Comprehensive Assistance for Family Caregivers, or, as the Army does, PCAFC. They like acronyms for everything. The family's monthly stipends from the program help, but they don't leave much room for financial emergencies. So when the family car required $6,000 in repairs, Leah thought she might have to choose between her home and transportation. I had no idea who to turn to, Leah said. We don't have extra money every month, so we can't take out loans, and caring for me is hard for my husband because it requires him to miss work. A lot of employers can't accommodate that. Fortunately, USA Cares was there at just the right time. Leah says that they have 3 kids. I never wanted them to be without a house or food. If they would have been able to help with one thing, I still would have been grateful, but it would have meant giving up something until I could find assistance elsewhere. But luckily, she didn't have to. Within 48 hours, Leah's case was reviewed and approved for the full required amount. I just had this enormous weight lifted off my shoulders, she said. To be able to have a military organization that looks out for veterans and doesn't pass judgment during difficult times, that's something we're blessed to have. And I think that kind of speaks to so many things that we've been talking about in our conversation today. It's this weight that just weighs on the veterans. And so often is the case is they, because of their, like maybe their mental and or physical situations or injuries that they have sustained, they just don't have very much margin. And something comes up, something happens, a car breaks down, or we get to somebody and they just don't have the ability, like their PTSD really starts acting up. A lot of times these veterans, they're fine until they're not, and they just can't work during that time. And what we do is we're able to come in and quickly, usually within about 48 hours, provide a grant on behalf of these veterans and their families of an average of about $4,100 last year, and kind of bring some peace of mind to them and bring some hope.
Well, it's really remarkable because anybody who's tried to get government assistance, you hear so much political noise about that. I mean, I've had to be on food stamps at one point in my life, and it wasn't something I'd ever imagined that I would have had to be. That was not the life I'd lived. I was always the one who took care of everybody else. But I had to put my pride down and do that for the short time I needed to until I could get solid again. But they don't make it easy. When you go try to get anything from the government, it is not an easy thing to do. The paperwork, you have to get there, you check in often. They do a lot of vetting because they don't want fraud. So the fact, though, that you are an organization for veterans, you know these are veterans, and you can go in, like Leah said, without judgment and make a grant available within 48 hours. That's such a huge blessing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. And there is, I mean, and we do want to make sure that people know that when they donate to USA Cares, we make sure that this money is going to the right place. It's really going to help veterans. As a matter of fact, out of every dollar that's donated to us, 89 cents of that goes directly to veteran assistance. It's going to help them. What the veterans do is they'll just give us documentation about the debt that they owe and where they need assistance. They'll give us a copy of their DD. It's called a DD 214 document, which basically just tells us all of their information or their status with the military. I think is the better way of putting that. And then we can help them navigate this problem because so many of the other resources, they're so, like you said with food stamps, they can be so difficult, and especially some of the ones on the military side, and they take so long sometimes. Like the group that I think sends the most referrals to us of any organization is the VA. Because
My brother is also a veteran. He was in the Air Force, and yeah, I've heard stories. You have to wait so long to get an appointment and then to get medication approved, or yeah. So it's not a very it's very bureaucratic, I should say.
it is, and we could talk for hours about about that. But I mean, it is a challenge. But sometimes I understand that they've got challenges, but like veterans or landlords don't really like to wait for 6 months before they get a rent check or something like that. So what we do is we come in and we try to help bridge that gap. We try to help give them some peace of mind.
But you're doing much more than that. I mean, because you're talking about money first, these emergency grants, but then you also mentioned, and if they need other services, we're going to help connect them with the community, which is something that you've been doing throughout your entire career, no matter what position you've been in or what organization.
Yes, well, yes, absolutely. I work to try and find partnerships wherever we can. As a matter of fact, this is really exciting. We have, it'll be next month. I'm working with another nonprofit and then two companies. So there's a roofing company and a landscaping company here in Texas, and we are giving a veteran family a roof for Christmas.
Wow, that's huge.
Yes,
That's
it's so amazing. We got to announce it to them last week. We surprised them with the news at a coffee shop in the Austin, Texas area, and we had a special emissary to deliver the news for us. You may not believe it, but we had Santa Claus actually come and tell this veteran that they were
oh
getting
my God.
that he and his family were getting a new roof for Christmas. So, and that's all because multiple organizations, companies, and nonprofit organizations came and worked together to make this happen.
And I want to be really clear with the audience who's listening, who are mostly business owners, right? Nonprofits are businesses. You have to operate like a business. You have to find the right partnerships. You have to know how much money, as you said, is going directly to service versus to operations, right? You have to have so much stuff buttoned up. And if you don't operate that way, it's not great. And you also have to be very clear on what's your North Star, right? What is your mission, vision, purpose? USA Cares is very clear. And I think that probably makes it a lot easier to have engagement and trust from whether it's donors, partner organizations, the greater community. And me having you on, you represent Texas, but you're really here representing all of the USA Cares chapters, wherever they may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like businesses like on your show, I mean, you talk a lot about branding and you talk a lot about like really these how the businesses need to position themselves and so forth. And I think when a business also looks at their community and they see the people of their community and they invest in that community, the community returns the favor and the community comes back and they support the business. And I guarantee you, no matter what community you're in, or no matter what area you serve, what industry you serve, there are going to be veterans around there, or there are going to be families of people that have veterans in their family, like yourself, like me, both of us. Neither of us were able to wear the uniform ourselves, but both of us are within a family member of being in the uniform. So the people who support our veterans are everywhere. And by supporting our veterans, I think you are supporting your community. And by supporting your community, you are able to really help make your business thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. This is something huge. It's always been something that's really important, but it's even more so now when we're looking at big tech and we're looking at all these different things and there's a lot of uncertainty, but knowing that you can trust a brand in your own community that you may need to use, there's nothing like that. So, Matt, I did want to ask, what is one thing, because this episode is coming out during the holidays. So I'm going to be very explicit to everybody that I did invite Matt on because I wanted his story. And I was really excited to share the story of USA Cares, but also, what is your ask from the community?
My ask from the community is two things. One, engage your veteran community, the veterans around you. There are many, many veterans. And if you're not sure like what they need, if you have a store, a storefront or something, just ask them. Put a sign out there. I'd love to talk to you veterans, or do a free coffee or event or something like that. That would be amazing. Let them know that they're valued, that they're cared for, and that they're seen. Another thing is we need help. We have far more veterans in need of assistance than we have the resources to assist, to be quite frank with you. And we need the support of our communities around us to be able to help our veterans. And they can do that by going to our website at usacares.org. We would love to partner with you. You can find out more information about our organization. You can reach out to us. We would love to connect with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. And one last question. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
Oh my gosh. I've been ready for this. So
Good.
I have this quote framed in my office. I love this quote. It's from President Teddy Roosevelt. And it's this: it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where their doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew no victory nor defeat. Love that quote.
That may win for longest quote that's ever been shared, but it packed a punch. So thank you for sharing that, Matt.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode or watching it on your favorite platform. Leave us a rating, review, subscribe, share with a friend, and definitely check out USA Cares. There are so many worthy causes, but I just have a real appreciation for ones where you know your donation is really going to make a difference. It's not just a drop in the bucket. It is going to directly change somebody's life. And that is why we're here today. So give it a thought. Think about what matters to you. Think about how you can show up for your community. And with that, have a beautiful holiday, everyone. And I'll be back soon. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrangamplified.com.